blood seeped into the cracked soil, and the air was thick with smoke and the acrid sting of gunpowder. Somewhere nearby, cries of pain and desperation split the air. Ben Salomon, a dentist by trade, a healer by instinct, found himself pressed into a role he had never trained for, in a war that demanded everything and promised nothing. He clutched his rifle, a weight that felt foreign in his hands, as his heart pounded against his ribs. There were too many of them, and too few of them knew the cost of what he was about to do. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who's listening. It had started hours earlier with a simple mission to protect the medics and the wounded. But the line had been breached. The enemy was advancing, relentless, and Ben could see the fear in the eyes of the soldiers around him. He was no soldier, at least not in the conventional sense. His hands were trained to heal, not to kill. And yet there he was, pressed against a shattered wall. His ears ringing from the chaos, his mind racing with calculations of life and death. The first wave came like a storm. Ben fired, his aim precise, a deadly rhythm guided by sheer necessity. He moved with an almost unnatural calm, calculating, methodical, yet every shot tore at him internally. He thought of the young medic he had treated earlier that morning, the way her hands had trembled as she cleaned a wound. Could she see him now and still call him a healer? He pushed the thought away. There was no time for hesitation. Gunfire echoed, ricocheting through the shattered buildings. Dust swirled in the sunbeams that cut through the smoke. Ben's face was streaked with grime and sweat. He could hear the shallow breaths of the wounded around him, feel the weight of responsibility pressing down like a storm cloud. And still, he held his ground. With every enemy that fell, he felt the heavy pulse of moral conflict. Life he took was another step away from the man he had always believed himself to be. Yet every life he saved was a justification he clung to desperately. Time stretched, hours felt like days. He was alone now, the rest of his unit either fallen or retreating, and the enemy kept coming, wave after wave. He had no reinforcements, no backup, only a rifle, a handful of cartridges, and a determination that defied human limits. And as he fought, a strange clarity emerged. This was no longer about survival. It was about honor, about protecting those who could not protect themselves, about embodying a courage that transcended the battlefield. Ben's breathing grew ragged. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the sheer intensity of exertion. He peered over the barricade, counting the enemy's numbers, estimating their movements. Every sense was heightened: the whisper of a footstep, the metallic scrape of a rifle, the distant groans of the wounded. And still he pressed forward. Every shot was precise, every action deliberate. He had become a force of nature, a single man standing against an unstoppable tide. At one point, a thought pierced through the chaos. Am I still a healer? The question struck him with the weight of 1,000 doubts. He saw the faces of the enemies, young men like himself, driven by orders, caught in the same machinery of war. Yet he could not stop. There was no alternative. Retreat would mean certain death for those he had sworn to protect. So he fought relentlessly, astonishingly, becoming a legend before the day was done. By the end, Ben Salomon had killed 98 enemies. 98 men, each life extinguished by a hand meant for healing. And yet the wounded were safe, the medics were alive, and the line had held. Exhausted, broken, and forever changed, he sank to the ground. His uniform was torn, his body battered, his spirit heavy, but he had done what was necessary. Courage, he realized, was not always about glory. Sometimes it was about standing alone, doing the impossible, and accepting the cost in silence. The medics he had protected now tended to him. They murmured thanks, their voices trembling with relief and awe. And as he looked around, seeing the survivors begin to breathe freely for the first time in hours, he understood the strange, paradoxical truth of war, that acts of violence could, in rare circumstances, create space for life. Because courage doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back. Ben Salomon returned not as a conqueror, but as a man who had seen the extremities of human fear and human valor. His hands would forever remember both the scalpel and the rifle. And in the quiet moments, he would reconcile the healer and the warrior within. The battlefield was behind him, but its lessons would echo forever, a testament to the idea that ordinary people could rise to extraordinary challenges when the world demanded it. If this story moved, you leave a comment sharing what courage means to you and Dan. Forget to subscribe to Whispered Words for more incredible tales of bravery and humanity that remind us of the power within us all.